Welcome. In this lesson we're going to look at prototyping web page layouts. So this is layout 1. Now when you come to prototyping layouts, it's really cool because you get to kind of lay out the way you want your page to be before you add the content. Now in the past 5 lessons we've basically just looked at all the individual parts of HTML and CSS. Now when we get to this part we're thinking more advanced things, so we're thinking about putting the whole thing together and making it look really nice, okay? Now this is the first time now that we're really and truly using Html5 elements, which are great and they make it possible to do really advanced layouts and structures. So the new elements we're using are the header, not to be confused with the head tag. So the head tag is an off-page element, whereas the header is an on-page element. Then we're going to look at the footer, section and side, all of which are just containers that help you build these layouts. So your extension task for this lesson is, once we finish flushing out the main design of this page, your job is to add images, paragraph text, header text, lists and links. Now I do want new images and I do want new text, okay, so a new list and new links, okay, so everything has to be new, just to kind of recap what we've learnt so far and using it alongside these advanced layouts. So the actual layout that we're going to try and build is this one here. So as you can see, we have this horrible color scheme, and we don't care about the colors at this point because we're just designing, we're just putting things together and making sure they sit in the right place, okay? So later on down the line we'll make it look a lot prettier. A lot of these colors will be taken out completely and replaced with like whites and greys. So what you see here is the blue is your body, the red is obviously your header, and notice that they have a width setting as well. So the header is 100%. Then you have this aside, which is a sidebar, width of 25%, and then the section of 75%, and then finally you have this footer. So this is probably quite typical of a lot of pages that you've visited really, where you've got in the header you've got the navigation, you've got a logo, in the sidebar you've got some sublinks and some news, and in the section you've got maybe the blog post or something, and then the footer will have all the kind of copyright notifications and sub menus and things. So without further ado, let's have a go at building this particular page. Or this particular layout. We're going to start afresh. Here's our page, so make sure you're working in your web design project. We're going to close everything out and we're going to start brand new. But the first thing I'm going to do before I close my pages is I'm just going to copy all of this text all the way down from doc type all the way down to the opening body, Control C, because I need that and it's just going to save me a bit of time. Once I've got that, I'm just going to close all of these pages out and start afresh. So I'm going to say File, New, File, New, and File, Save, or Save As, and make sure you're in the right folder. So mine is the Web Design Project folder, and I'm going to call this Layout 1. Now the good thing about this is later on you'll be able to reuse this code very simply, okay? So layout1.html, don't forget the HTML, and then under where it says save as type, go down to hypertext markup language and then press save once you're happy. We can close that one. So we've got our layout 1 saved. Now we can quickly just Control V and paste that bit of text in, and let's just close out these tags. So let's close out the body. And let's close out the HTML. Okay, so just closing out body tag and the HTML tag just to make sure it all works. And that's basically our initial kind of design, okay? It won't work yet, but we'll get to that in a second. Now let's create the style sheet for this page. So File, Save As, File, New, File, Save As, and we're going to call this layout 1 hyphen style sheet. So layout 1 hyphen style sheet dot CSS. So it's a CSS file. So we're creating this design from the ground up. So where it says save as type, we just want to choose the CSS type here. So where is it? Cascading style sheet. Can anyone see it? There it is. I'm right on it. Cascading style sheet file. Make sure it's in the right folder. Make sure it's called layout 1 hyphen style sheet dot CSS and press save. Now let's head on over to our actual folder to make sure both of those things are there. So there's our layout 1, and there's our layout 1 style sheet. Now we do need to link this to our layout 1. So let's go back to our HTML page, and here's the old page. So if I was to load it now, it would look completely different, and it would load up the old style sheet. So let's just change that to layout 1 stylesheet.css. Save that. Now let's just change the way this looks. So if we right click on this, go down to move to other view, and we'll have them side by side. Now I'm not keen on that way of it doing it, so let's just try and get that back. Come back. There we go. Let me just close that out and try that one again. Sorry, that was my bad. Let's just drag layout 1 in. Now what I really want is for the style sheet to be on the other side, because I just prefer it that way, but if it doesn't go this time, I'm just going to leave it. There we go. Right, so we have our layout1.css. We just need to make sure that it works. Okay, so let's just put in a bit of text. So we have a body element, so let's just say body, and then say background, and we know we want the background color to be blue. So background colon blue semicolon, save all. Now if you click on this layout 1 tab and then go to run, and then run or launch in Chrome. Hold on 2 seconds, it's just doing that thing again that it did before. Hold on, I'll be right back. There we go. Right, so let's go run and launch in Chrome, and that's better. So now you can see that the actual page, this layout 1 page, is linking with the style sheet, which is exactly what we want. So let's have a look at our design again. So we've got the background color looking exactly the way we want it. Now we have 4 elements we need to put on our page. We need this header, we need the aside, we need the section, and we need the footer. The important note here is that if you put the aside on top of the section, it will come out left to right. If you put the section on top of the aside, it will do the reverse. So this kind of way of working is very, very flexible. So let's do that now. So let's put the header in first. So inside of our layout1.html, we want to put the header, and it has to be closed as well. And then the next one was the aside, and then close them as well. Then the next one was the section, once again close it as well. And then finally it was the footer. Now if I'm going too fast for you guys, remember, pause the video, complete the task, and then restart the video. Make it a lot easier for you guys to kind of follow along. So if you haven't got all of this new HTML and CSS stuff in, just quickly do that now. Pause the video, quickly do that now, and then come back to it. So the next thing I want to do is just put some placeholder text in each of these elements, just so that I know exactly which section is which. So let's go, this is the header. Okay, notice that I haven't wrapped it in paragraph tag, because that basically tells me that I want to remove this later on. It's literally there now just as a kind of placeholder to tell me what's going on. So let's just type, this is a sidebar, this is the section, and then this is the footer. Okay, so now save all, come back over to here and just refresh, and you can see that all of those elements are in there. So we have the header in there, we have the sidebar, we have the section, and we have the footer. They're obviously not laid out the way we want them to yet, but that's not a problem. That's where the CSS comes in. So as far as I'm concerned with the HTML, this is it. This is kind of the bare bone way it should look, which is great. It's nice and simple. And this is a fantastic way of templating. So let's look at our design elements. So let's look at the header first. So we're going to style the header out with 100% width with this red background for the time being. One thing I would say to you guys is, for these main sections, so the header, aside, section and footer, avoid using padding, margin and borders, okay? if you use any of those, you have to recalculate the percentage. It's really important for the way that things stack. It's really important that they equal 100%. So let me show you. So let's do the header first. So over on the CSS page, we're going to type in header and then the curly brackets next to the 9, or the P, sorry. And we're going to say background, red, colon, semicolon. We want a height, so we have to determine what the height's going to be. So if we say a height of 300, let's say 400 just to be adventurous, height of 400 pixels, and then we want a width of 100%. So don't forget these semicolons. If you do, it will break it, okay? So we have a background of red, we have a height of 400 pixels, and we have a width of 100%. If we save all, then head on back over to here, let's minimize that, and refresh, you'll now see that we have this first part of our layout. It's way too big, so let's just change that to about 200 pixels. It should give us a more approximate size. Now, it's a very fixed size in height, but because we're using percentages, it allows us to rescale the page and it will stick to 100%, which in the modern kind of web design, this is really important. To have web pages that scale is it's really important, because that way you can use it on iPads and phones and browsers and desktops and all kinds of stuff. Okay, let's move on. Let's do the aside next. So the aside needs to be a green, and it's a 25%. Okay, so let's say background green, and you can change these colors later, so don't worry about the fact that it's just horrible. Now the height is going to be a min height, because we're going to put content into this area. It's going to be a min height, so min hyphen height, it basically says minimum height, and let's say 400 pixels, so this will allow it to grow bigger than that but won't ever get smaller. And let's say width 25%. Okay, let's move on to the next one as well. So let's build out both the sidebar and the section. Well, let's show you what happened first. So let's do that. So here we go. So now we have this sidebar, and you can see it's starting to look like our picture. So here's our picture, 100% header, sidebars there. Now we've got this section to build out now. Close that down. So the section is going to be background of yellow, and min height has, if you make the minimum heights the same as the sidebar, they can grow together. If you end up putting more content in and you want them to be matched, you might just have to kind of recalculate that based on how much content each section has. Or if you want to, you can have a fixed height. You don't necessarily, if you want to say, right, it's a fixed height of 1,000, that's fine. A lot of people do that. So the width that we want is 75%. Okay, now I've deliberately left out a piece of code because I want to show you what happens if you don't add the floating point in, which allows it to sit next to each other. So I've got the calculations right, so 25%, 75%, but when I press refresh, the actual section is not sitting side by side, and it's because I've missed out the floating point. And it's really important to note that once you start using floating points for sections, you have to continue to use them. So I will need to put a floating point in for my footer as well. So let's do that now. Now the floating point can go right at the top, or it can go with the width. It makes more sense to go with the width. So let's say float, and let's say left. I always put it left. Don't worry about trying to put it right because you think it has to go right. Always specify one direction. So for all the floats now, they will all be left, no matter that it's on the left or it's in the center or whatever, it's always left. And we also need to do this here as well. So we have to say float left, even though it's, this is on the left, but this is on the right, but they both get floated to the left, okay? And they equal 100%, so you can see that they sit lovely side by side. Now let me just show you what happens if they don't equal 100%. So let's just change this side to 35%. Now you've got two trains of thought here. The first train of thought is that it will just grow off the page. The second train of thought is it will drop down. Most browsers deal with it in the second way, so it just drops it down. but then look what's happened to the footer. It's dropped the footer in a completely random place. Now this is what I say about this kind of 100%. It has to be 100%. And that's why for all these main sections, this header, sidebar, footer section, I won't add border, I won't add padding, and I won't add margin to the left or right. Okay, and this way it will keep that 100% real, because anything you add in terms of border, padding or margin will add to that percentage. Okay, so let's just change it back to 25. Let's get it back to the way it should look. And press refresh. Now let's do the last one. So the last one's a footer. And should get me a little space there. Start with the background, which is orange. Okay, and we can have just a standard height for this one. So let's just say 200 pixels again. The next bit we need is a float. I know we don't, because it's 100%, we don't really need to float it, but if you don't float it, it won't work the way you want it to. So float left, height, min, and then we want width, which is 100%. Now, that should give us our full layout. Nice and simple, and if you look at the code, very, very minimal. Okay, lots of repeating myself. So we've only used 4 elements actually. We've used background, height, float and width. How easy is that? So let's just refresh it, make sure it works. So there we go. Now let's make that a bit smaller. So let's just make that 50. Because the footers, well, you can have large footers, but they tend to be a little bit smaller. So what our main mission now is, now we've got them all kind of sectioned out right, is to put in the content in each section. So this is where you guys take over. For each of these sections, so if we look at this header section, I'd like you to put some text in here, I'd like you to put an image in there. I'd also, in this one here, I'd like you to put an image, a bit more text, maybe a load of text in here, some images, maybe even a list in this section, okay? Just really pad it out. I'm going to show you how to do the first little bit. So if you wanted to create an image, for instance, so let's put an image in this header. So I'm just going to open up this tag, and then I'm going to have my image tag in there, so img, and then we want source equals, and then whatever your image is. So let's go and get our image. So what are we going to use? So go to our images folder, and let's just say image-1 JPEG. So image -1.jpg, and now you can see that we actually have our image inside of our header. Okay, or it didn't work because I've typed something wrong. What have I typed wrong? And this will happen. It will tell you that it wants to be an image, but it'll say, look, you haven't specified the right file, or you haven't got the right name, and that's what this means here. So let's go back in, image-1, so that's right. What kind of file is it? So if I want to know what kind of file it is, if I just click on it, right click, properties, and it is a JPG, so that means I've spelt something wrong. So it all looks okay to me, so what have I done wrong here? I've probably got to get rid of this actually. No. Let's try another one. Let's just make sure I've spelled it right. And this will happen to you guys quite a bit actually, where you haven't spelled something right, or you haven't got it in the right folder. And, rookie error. So who noticed what I did wrong? I bet you all did. The fact is, and this, yeah, the amount of times I have to solve this problem, I just made the same problem myself, is inside the images folder. So in order to specify that, you need to say /images, or sorry, images / okay, then the file name, then the type, save that and reload. There you go. So that's how you get the images in there. So you can use images, links, H tags, P tags, lists, everything. I want to see loads and loads of styling in here. Just see what you can work out, okay? And with that being said, I'll see you in the next lesson.